Welcome into the All Sports Cleveland radio station. My name is Justice Garber, and you're listening to Justice and Sir Sports Talk. This is our first show ever, and we're going to get it kicked off here. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. My name is Justice Garber. I'm a student here at Ohio Media School. It's about, I could say, like my 5th month now, and I've done a whole bunch of different projects here, started to learn a whole bunch of different things. And one of these new things is trying to do a radio show. So, like I said, this is going to be my first one. I'm doing it solo, so trying to challenge myself. But as a little bit about me, like I said, I'm a student here. I also do a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm into all sorts of different kinds of media, like photography, making videos. Pretty much anything that you can do with media is definitely something I'm about. I love streaming on Twitch, all that good stuff. And then a lot of my interests revolve around sports, obviously. I have several podcasts that I'm working on right now. The big one is I have a podcast called Chilling with the Dogs that I do with my father. Those episodes drop on Friday on Spotify if you want to check those out. But more so about me, I'm from Central Ohio. Technically Northeast Ohio, but it's really in the center of Ohio. I grew up in a small town in Hayesville, Ohio. Went to a school with about 60 kids, a real nice, tight-knit community. Now I'm up here in Cleveland, going to school up here, getting to meet all sorts of different kinds of people. And it's been an amazing experience. Definitely learned a lot. A lot of things that I didn't even know went into making and producing content. I couldn't even go through all the different things I've learned here in these 5 months, and still got 3 more months to learn more. So that's definitely cool. Made a lot of great connections up here. A lot of my fellow classmates, including the one sitting right next to me right now, they have definitely taught me a lot and made me grow as a person, made me get outside my comfort zone and start to, do things that I've always envisioned myself doing, but never actually put the foot forward to try. So that's definitely been something really cool. And let me tell you guys a little bit about what this show is going to be. Like I said, this show is called Justice is Served, play on my name. And it's going to be a sports talk show. Mostly we're going to be centered around the Browns and the NFL in particular. You'll get a heavy influence of the Browns, especially starting out now because it's the start of the season. We got the first game on Sunday. But I'll be talking about a lot of national topics too. A lot of different teams I'm interested in. And then kind of as the year goes on and we get into basketball season, baseball season, I'm also a big fan of those sports, as well as many others like golf and hockey and stuff like that. I'll tie that in a little bit for you guys. Mostly I'll probably focus on the NFL, but if there's something big happening in the world of basketball or baseball, especially with October coming up and playoff baseball going on, I'll be giving you guys a little bit of information on that. But yeah, that's a little bit about me, a little bit about the show. I'm going to go ahead and get into the first segment here, kind of show you guys what the show is going to be a little bit like. So first segment, we're going to be talking about the Cincinnati game coming up. Obviously, that's on a lot of people's minds, especially up here in Cleveland. I'm really stoked for that game. I already have it set up with my dad. We're going to be doing that podcast, and we're going to watch it together and kind of pick apart the team, watch the all 22 afterwards, but kind of pick apart, enjoy the experience, and see what it's about. For me, I've already went through the rosters, and I don't want to get too much into predictions because we'll talk about that a little later. But I think this game has a lot of juice behind it, especially with the rivalry that's a little bit brewing right now with the Browns and Cincy, the Battle of Ohio. Recently the Bengals have had much more success overall, but the Browns in the series itself have definitely had the edge, at least while Joe Burrow's been there. So and a lot of people say that's attributed to Myles Garrett, but we'll get a better idea here come Sunday. I think that defense is, but honestly, both defenses are amazing, but I think our defense is incredibly scary. If Joe Burrow's had a problem in the past, I don't think he's going to have a very happy day with this new revamped defense, especially coming off of his lower leg injury. So, yeah, I'm excited for that game. I think that there's plenty of opportunity for the Browns to kind of showcase what they're going to be like this season, especially with the new coaching staff they've brought in, the new additions on, as the players. I think it's going to be really cool to see how they fit into the fold of what we saw last year. See how, all three phases have been modified because, obviously last year we got to see a little bit of Deshaun and how he'll operate under Kevin Stefanski-led offense, but I don't think we got the full playbook, and I think plenty was installed over this past offseason, so I think you're going to see an entirely different offense. And then in the other two phases, you got completely new coaching staff there. So I think that you're going to see a lot of different changes there, especially on defense. That Jim Schwartz-led defense, I think, is going to be completely different, and I think it's going to be very scary for opposing offenses. So I'm incredibly excited to see that. I think that, Bubba Vitrone being our special teams coordinator, I think you're going to get a lot of juice on special teams. Last year we got some. Mike Preifert was in my opinion, he was a great special teams coordinator, especially throughout his career. I just think that there were some things that didn't really pan out with us. And I think we maybe didn't dedicate the best roster allocation to the special teams. But I think this year they definitely have made a case for how important that is on our team. They've kept some players like Matt Adams, some of these special teams aces that I think are definitely going to help out Ventrone and being that special teams better. And obviously we upgraded, or in my opinion, we upgraded at the kicker position. Give a shout out to Cade York. I definitely appreciate, what he was able to do while he was here. Unfortunately, we had to move on there. Wish him all the best over in Tennessee, but I feel like we, maybe upgrade a little bit there. Got Dustin Hopkins in here, very, very solid kicker. If he's inside 50, it's almost automatic, which hopefully with our offense this year playing some good football, we won't have to be worrying about trying to hit a 55, 60-yard field goal. We can get him inside that 50 yards and get those easy 3 points. But I think this team is definitely positioned well. I mean, the AFC is incredibly stacked this year. There's going to be tons of competition. I think, honestly, in the top 15 teams in the league, there's 11 of them in the AFC. So the Browns have their work cut out for them. I think that they're going to definitely have to scratch and claw to win the division. In my opinion, the AFC North is the strongest division right now. There's some other contenders. The AFC East is definitely hard as well. The AFC West remains pretty tough, with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes and Herbert at the top of that division. And then, a lot of people have varying opinions about Russell Wilson, but, we've seen him be a great quarterback before. So if he can return to form in that way, that's going to be a hard division. But I think the AFC North is where it's at. We always play hard brand of football, always beat each other up, and whoever comes out of that division is always primed for, making a decent run in the playoffs. So we'll see how it goes. I think the Browns on paper definitely have all the tools to be successful this year, but we got to see that in practice, and we're definitely going to see that, at least the start of it, on Sunday. I was talking on my podcast earlier last week. I think that this is and I won't spoil too much of what's going on later in the show, but I think this is going to be a really tight game. I know that it's always said the offenses start a little bit slower. Defense usually has the edge early in the season. So with two great defenses, I think it's going to be a fun matchup. I don't know that I think it's going to be super high scoring, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think you're going to get to see that Ohio now has two very, very good, very, very competitive football teams. And I think that's going to be exciting to watch. All right. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about the game. Going to get into some predictions, get some insight on what I think is going to happen. Welcome back into the Justice is Served radio show. My name is Justice again, your host, and now we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about the game, get into some predictions. I'll tell you kind of what I see happening as far as the overall score. I'll tell you guys what I think about the current over-under and over-unders for different players, and kind of get a sense of what's going on this week. So first off, I'll let you guys know and break it down a little bit. I think that on my podcast, I originally had the score be 24-20 Browns. I have a hard time seeing Joe Burrow coming off an injury. He's already struggled with the Browns defense, and now it's new and improved, and it's changed quite a bit as far as not just the personnel, but the scheme. I think they're going to have a hard time with that. I know that they got Orlando Brown, and that's, in my opinion, a big upgrade, but I think Orlando Brown still, any good left tackle in the league still struggles with Miles, and I think Burrow unfortunately sees Miles in his nightmares. So I think there's still going to be a little bit of an element of that. I think our defensive line, if I had to grade it, I think it has progressed more so this year than the additions on offensive line that the Bengals made. So I think it's going to be a defensive game. I originally said on my podcast, I think it's going to be 24-20. And with it being in Cleveland, I think I'm going to bump it up just a little bit more. I think I'm going to go 27-20. Have not looked into the weather yet, but I think no matter the weather, even if it's a downpour, I think that kind of leans into the Browns' favor because the Bengals definitely want to throw the ball, kind of get the ball. I would think they would want to get the ball out early with that pass rush and establish the run. But the other big part of that we don't really know yet is Denzel Ward's health. Earlier last week he sustained a concussion, and he was in the concussion protocol. So we don't know yet exactly what's going on there. Hopefully he's doing all right. Hopefully he's able to play that game. But more importantly, it's his fourth concussion. So hopefully he's not having any really bad symptoms with that. He's an incredible player. So having four concussions this early in your career can be a very, very scary thing. So hopefully he's all right, and hopefully, for the sake of the Browns, that he gets cleared, because Denzel has been a nightmare as well for the Bengals. And as far as matchups wise goes, playing without Denzel hurts a lot because he plays so well against Ja'Marr Chase. And if you didn't have him, you'd have to either put Greg Newsome or Emerson on him. And I'd much rather, I would think that in that scenario, you would probably put Martin Emerson on Ja'Marr Chase and then kick Greg over to T. Higgins. But I'd much rather have Martin Emerson on T. Higgins. T is a bigger body receiver. I think that you'd be at a severe detriment if you're not playing with Denzel there. But we'll see. And then I was also doing a little bit of reading earlier today, kind of trying to see what some of the under-overs were for some of the, like what the overall score was supposed to be, what they think Nick Chubb's going to rush for, over-under on sacks and whatnot. So for some of these, I'll give you my opinion of what the number is, what I foresee, and relay that back to what they predict. So I saw that the over-under was 47.5. So if I go off my prediction of 27-20, that means that we would be under that. And I definitely think that's the case. I think just based off it being the first game. Now, obviously there's outliers in that, because sometimes you can just have a team that absolutely explode the first game and put up, 45 points, a la, I think the Miami Dolphins did that last year. So, or maybe 2 years ago, but that definitely can happen. But I don't see it being that way. I think both these teams are too competitive, too consistent, two very good defenses. I think that the offenses are going to start slow, and defense will win the day. Even though, in this NFL, 27-20 is relatively low scoring. Say that 20 years ago, that's a pretty high scoring game. But I think it's going to be somewhere around there. I think it's going to go under. And another one that I was looking at was because I'm always, Nick Chubb. He's my favorite Browns player right now. He's probably my favorite player in the league, but he's definitely my favorite Browns player. And they have his over-under at 89.5, I believe. That might have changed, but I think that seems, if you're doing an under-over, I think that's a pretty good one. I think that allows for some, possibility that Chubb gets injured or, temporarily injured and doesn't get the carries. It could be that we're behind and we're having to pass a lot, and so he's not getting carries there. But I think if the game goes the way that I anticipate, I think he's going to probably get 16 to 20 carries, and I think he easily eclipses that 89.5. So for me, if I was a betting man, I'd probably go with the over there. I think that with the Bengals having 3 new starting secondary members, even though Louisier and I'm blanking on their other cornerback's name, but they have decent corners. I just think that their safety room might be a little bit suspect just because they're young. But I guess I see us getting off to an early start and just running the ball and wasting away clock. I think that Amari and Elijah and DPJ are going to have a decent day. I think that I could see Deshaun throwing for, I would see him throwing for 2 touchdowns and 220 yards. I don't think he has to have a prolific day for us to succeed in this game. He probably will get somewhere between 25 and 32 attempts, which if he's doing that, then that's either a low completion percentage or a low average yards. But I think that 220, 2 touchdowns, I think that's a good day for him, because I think Nick Chubb, if I had to guess, would probably be around 125 and a touchdown as well. And then a couple of kicks from Dustin Hopkins puts us there. So that's where I see that going. I think that going through the Browns offense, I think that this year the receivers and the tight ends, and we're all going to spread the wealth quite a bit. So I think it's going to be one of those things where one receiver might go off one week, and then the next, and I think everybody's going to get their targets, but I think one receiver might go off one week, another one might the following weeks. It kind of just depends. So this week, let's say I think they're going to feature Elijah Moore a lot because he's the new piece, and I think they're interested in see what he can do. I don't know who they'll have on him. Probably Mike Hilton, if I had to guess. Mike Hilton's a great slot corner, so I think that definitely could be a cool matchup to see. But I think that Elijah Mitchell will get plenty of targets this game, and I think Njoku will as well. So I would see Elijah going for, I'd say, 6 to 7 receptions for. I think he's going to have this year a good average yards per catch. And a good yak as well. So I think that he'll probably be, let's go 85 yards receiving or more. I think he'll either be the highest or the second highest receiver in terms of yards, I think. And then you could flip-flop either David Njoku or Amari for the top spot. And then, you can't really do any sort of great predictions for the line, but I think they're going to play pretty solid. Like I said, their defensive line is incredibly good. They're at this point they're full of Pro Bowlers. Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, Hill, and Reader. They're all solid guys. I think that our line, I think our line's, in my opinion, the best in the league. In many people's opinion, top 5 at least. So I think they'll handle it. I think they're going to create plenty of running lanes for Nick Chubb. I think it's going to be a pretty solid offensive day for the Browns. I think 27 points is nothing to scoff at. And then as far as how I see the Bengals and how I project them, I think it's a little bit of the reverse. I think that the Bengals are going to have to throw the ball to win, because I don't think that they're going to. I think Joe Mixon is a solid running back. I would say he's even top 12. I'd say he's probably top 9 or 8 running backs. But I think our pass rush and our run defense this year is just going to be so much better than it has in the past. I don't really see how it can't be with having Shelby Harris, with having Dalvin Tomlinson in the middle there. I think that those guys are going to be such an improvement from last year. And then I think that's going to free up JOK, A-Walk, any of our linebackers to make some plays. So I think that they're going to have to throw the ball. I think I could easily see Joe Mixon having 58 yards, maybe 58 yards, or or more. Probably not more than like 65 or 70 though. And I could see him having a touchdown in a goal line situation or something like that. And then I think Joe Burrow, if they're going to win this game, I think that it'll be on the back of Joe Burrow and those receivers. So if I had to guess, I would say I would see his stat line as 2 touchdowns and 280 yards. I think if they win, it's probably going to be way more than that. But I think, given my prediction of them losing, I think it's going to be something like that. I think he'll have a couple of them as far as his passes. I think I don't think he's going to have a great completion percentage that game. Rather that he's going to have a couple of ones that break. Having Jamar and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, they can only, I think they got Irv Smith Jr. too. So they can only be contained for so long. Someone's going to break eventually. So I think they're going to get some chunk plays that get, all those yards built up. And then as far as their receivers go, I think they're hard to predict because right now we don't have Denzel. I think if Denzel plays, then that mitigates a little bit of Jamar Chase. But, I think we'll operate under the assumption right now that Denzel isn't going to play just for the sake of this. So if Denzel doesn't play, I can see Jamar having a big day. I would guess he's going to get one of those touchdowns that Joe Burrow throws. And if that's the case, I see him going 85 plus. But if I had to put a number on it, I'd probably say 98 yards. And then I think T. Higgins. I'm a big T. Higgins fan. I met him when I used to live down in Clemson. He used to come into the Clemson GameStop that I used to work at. So I got to meet him a couple of times. He was a great dude, as were all those Clemson players. So I've always been a big fan of his, and I think that he's another number one receiver they have. So I think if he's working against Greg Newsome, and I love Greg Newsome, I think he's severely underrated, but I think that Greg Newsome can struggle with a body like T, and I could see him getting close to 100. I'd say 85, and maybe the other touchdown that Joe Burrow throws. And then quickly to wrap it up, I think Tyler Boyd, he'll be, if Denzel's not playing, covered by Cameron Mitchell. So I think he gets an easy 45 to 65 yards. I know that's a big variance, but probably somewhere in that ballpark. And that's they evenly spread the ball out like that. I think that could spell trouble for the Browns. But those are some of my more stat line predictions. Coming up after the break, we're going to get into a little bit of more season-long views of how the Browns may fare. And even after that, we're going to be talking about some of my predictions and kind of how I see the season going for the whole NFL as a total. So stay tuned. We'll be back after the break here. This is Justice Garber with Justice is Served. See you in a bit.
Stuck in the rut? Feel like you need a change? Well, Ohio Media School is that change. With hands-on coursework taught by broadcast professionals, you too can work on one of many student-run internet radio stations on one of our 7 campuses. Just call 216-503-5900. That's 216-503-5900 or visit beonair.com. There's also job placement assistance at Ohio Media School to go along with the diploma program. Financial aid is available for those who qualify. The Ohio Media School. We change lives.
Saturday, November 24th. AllSportsCleveland.com will be on location at the Medina Eagles Club at 696 Lafayette Road in Medina. Bringing you the talk of the land live for one of the biggest rivalries in college football as the Ohio State Buckeyes take on the Michigan Wolverines. Tune in or come join us 2 hours before kickoff for all the pregame stats to have you ready for this epic matchup. Doors will open to the public at 11 a.m. with kitchen specials all day, as well as $10 buckets of domestics and raffles throughout the game, including a 70-inch Sony TV. You're not going to want to miss the broadcasters of tomorrow, bringing you all the action today, only on allsportscleveland.com. The talk of the land.
Hey, welcome back into Justice is Served podcast. This is Justice is Served radio show. My name's Justice, and I'm your host. This segment, we're going to be talking a little bit about the other matchups going on this week. First one we got here is the Chiefs versus the Lions. I see that game being really close. I think it's going to be really interesting. Obviously the Chiefs are the team to beat in the league. I think they have been for years now. And I think they've only gotten better this season. You know, obviously they lost Orlando Brown, and you know that was unfortunate, but for them, maybe not for the rest of the league. But I just see those young players having grown another year, and I think they're just going to get more dynamic. And then as far as their defense, I think Chris Jones not being there is really bad. But having an offense like that with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you know, I think they're going to be able to score with anybody, you know, and it seems like they always, no matter what, have just that one more play that puts them ahead. That's kind of how it feels. Kind of feels like similar to what Brady had back in the day with the Patriots. You know, didn't matter if you felt like you were in the lead or anything. They always had just that one more play that would put them over, and they didn't end up winning the game. And I've always attributed that to Bill Belichick, and I always now will attribute that to Andy Reid. I think they're both just incredible coaches. Always have that ace up their sleeve and know how to win games. So in this one, I think I kind of ruined that for you guys. I definitely think KC's going to win this game. I think it's going to be close. I love Detroit this year. In one of my podcasts with the boys, I predicted that the Lions would win the NFC North. So I think unfortunate that they had to start with KC here, but I see this game going something like 35-28 and KC pulling out the win there. After that, we've got the Texans and Ravens. I think that game is going to be relatively one-sided. I think Lamar Jackson's back. He's got some new toys he gets to play with. He's going against a pretty inexperienced Texans team. I think CJ Stroud will be impressive for a rookie, but I think he's going to have a little bit of a struggle with a Ravens team that's, you know, always plays good defense. And Roquan Smith will, you know, probably say hi to him a couple of times. But I think that game will be pretty one-sided. If I had to guess what I see that game going, I'd probably say 28 to 10 Ravens, because the Texans defense, I thought, it's got a little bit better, and they got Will Anderson there, so that'll be cool to see. Next after that, we've got the Buccaneers at the Vikings. This game, I don't know. I love Baker. I'm excited to see how he is, but this game doesn't seem incredibly interesting to me, I guess, just as a fan. You know, I don't have any stake in either of these teams, so. But I see that game also being a little bit more one-sided. I think the Vikings pulled that one out. You know, obviously they lost Dalvin this year, but you still got Jettas there. You know, you still got the best receiver in the league, in my opinion. You got Kirk Cousins, who I think is only getting better with age. And you got a coach who, you know, had his rookie season go fairly well. Or, you know, not fairly well. It went incredibly well. And I think they're going to be able to pull this one out here. All right, so if I had to guess, I think that game, Vikings win 28-17. And then next up, we got Panthers and Falcons. I think that game is going to be close. there again, I don't have really a really, I don't know, that game's interesting to me. I think that game's going to be really close. I don't really have a great feel for that game because I think they're very similar. Obviously, Desmond Ritter, is a young quarterback. Bryce Young, young quarterback. I do think I like the Falcons' weapons better. I mean, absolutely better. The Panthers got Adam Thielen this year. They got Miles Sanders. But a lot of their people still are incredibly young. Their line is suspect to me, has been for the past couple of seasons. And they definitely have their defensive pieces are definitely nice, but also still young. The Falcons, I love their offensive pieces. Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Brian Robinson Jr. Not Brian Robinson Jr. I'm blanking on their first round pick, but he is also a beast. So I think that they'll take that one. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm going to say 23-20. Next up, we got Washington Commanders at the Cardinals. Well, I don't know if they're at the Cardinals, actually. But, yeah, it's the Cardinals at Commanders. Sorry about that. But I think the Commanders win this one pretty easily. I think a lot of people don't really give much credit to Washington. I think that they have a great defense, in my opinion. I think that defense is tough. They have been for the past couple of years. I think they have an amazing receiver room. I think they got a couple of good running backs. Their line's not bad. I mean, I wouldn't say it's in the top 12, they might be a top 15 offensive line. And then, Sam Howell, I think this season is going to be a big question mark for now. I think they'll kind of go as Sam Howell goes, but, they're also going against Cardinals here, who seem to be on, having a little bit of a fire sale. So I think that they are tanking, trying to get. They could honestly have the first 2 picks in the draft and get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison. So that'd be interesting. But I think that game's won pretty handily. I think Washington comes out on top. Let's say 28-7. All right, moving on. We got tons of games this weekend, obviously. Next game. Let's do Pittsburgh and San Francisco. So we got a couple of people here at Ohio Media School. They're really big Steelers fans. I don't know how. I don't get it. But they are. I got plenty of friends that are Steelers fans, and they are all just incredibly jacked for this season. They seem to... I don't understand it. I don't see it. And they also don't understand why I'm excited for the Browns, but they're really high on Kenny Pickett this year. Obviously, Pickens is another year in. They do have tons of great weapons, and they do have a great defense. So I just don't know what I think yet of Kenny Pickett. I don't know if you want to go off the training camp. He had a successful training camp, but I don't know. I don't see yet. I think that his game could be similar to Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert right now for me is heads and tails better. But if the kid can turn into a Justin Herbert, that team can be very scary for a long time. So maybe Pittsburgh fans are on something there. I'm just want to see it, see it first before I say that. So, and then also another storyline in this game is we don't know if Nick Bosa is going to be playing or not. So I think that's a big question mark. I think that's a big detriment to San Francisco if he's not playing. That defensive line, that defense is already stout. But not having Nick Bosa there, you're missing your star, your superstar power there. And, I'd love to see him rip up some Pittsburgh Steelers offensive linemen. But we'll see later on as the week progresses, if they get a deal done, he suits up for them. But without Nick Bosa, I know this is going to anger some of my classmates here that are Steelers fans, but even without Nick Bosa, I see San Francisco winning. And I do think Pittsburgh's going to be all right this year, but I think that San Francisco is just a force to be reckoned with. Brock Purdy, I'm curious to see how he does this season. I think he doesn't have to do too much, honestly, for that team to be successful. They just have so many weapons, such great defense, such great coach. I think that he'll be just fine kind of managing the game as he did last year. And I'm hoping Kittle will also play because, he had some injury concerns. So hopefully he plays as well. But even without those guys, Debo, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and that great offensive line, I think they take it. And I'm going to say they win 24-21. I think it's going to be close, but I think San Francisco wins that matchup. All right, moving on, we got the Jaguars at Colts. I think this is going to be a real fun game to watch. I don't think it'll be particularly close, but you get to see Anthony Richardson first time going against another young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. I think that's a fun matchup, and I think as the years go on, that definitely could be a matchup that is very entertaining. But right now, I think that Richardson doesn't have a ton of weapons around him. He's a young quarterback who needs groomed, needs some polish. He's got a really raw game right now. So I won't spend too long on this one. I think the Jaguars win this one pretty easily. I'd go 31-10 on that. All right, next up we got the Titans and Saints. This one, I think I'm not super high on the Titans this year. I said so on my podcast even. I absolutely love Mike Vrabel. If he could be a coach for the Browns, I would love for him to be on a Browns coach. But I think that they're a team that's kind of regressed. I won't go into everything that happened with them this season. They got D-Hop, but Derrick Henry got another year older. Tannehill, another year older. And we didn't really see Trey Burks develop a ton last year. Maybe he will this year, especially with having D-Hop there with him. But I don't know. I think the Saints take this one. I like what the Saints have done. I love Derek Carr. I've always liked Derek Carr. I might be one of the only people that do. But I think that he's going to have a great season. I think that, unfortunately, Alvin Kamara won't be playing due to a suspension, but I think they'll be A-okay there. I think that Chris Olave is going to have a great season. I think the Saints win this one. I think that they win it, let's say 28-17. All right. So we're getting up against the clock here. So I'm going to make these next ones pretty quick because we got several more to go through. So I'll just give you scores rather than talking about, the matchups as much. So next up, we got Raiders Broncos, a rivalry game. Not super high on either of these teams this year, but you still have two quarterbacks there who have been incredibly successful before. But for me, I think that Russell has a better team, and so the Broncos win. I'll say this game because I have the Broncos defense in fantasy. That wasn't really my choice, but I have them in fantasy, so I hope it's not a high-scoring game, but I think it's going to be. Just based off their defenses, I don't think are, the best. Broncos lost their defensive coordinator, so I think that this one I could see going 31-28 Broncos. Next up, we got Eagles-Patriots. An old Super Bowl matchup. I think that this one's pretty easy. I think the Eagles demolish the Patriots. I would say they win 38-17. After that, we got the Rams and Seahawks. Another rivalry game here. I think the Seahawks take care of the Rams. I'll say they win. I think the Seahawks are going to be really good this year. I'll say they win 28-13. All right, we got a couple more. I'm going to do Dolphins-Chargers next. I think that the Dolphins, I think both of these teams are going to be really good. Really, really good. They're some of the best teams in the AFC. So I think the Dolphins win this one. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be really high scoring. Even though the Dolphins have good defense, I think the Chargers are going to get some points. I think it's going to be 31-28 Dolphins. After that, we got another rivalry game, Packers-Bears. I don't really care much for the Packers this year. I should preface this by saying I'm also Browns are my AFC team, Bears are my NFC team, and then my third team would probably be San Fran. So I'm definitely a Bears fan as well. And maybe it's a homer in me, but I think that the Bears take this one. I'm going to go, I think they put up some points too. I'm going to say 31, Packers 20. All right, moving on, we got another rivalry game, Cowboys-Giants. I think these are two teams who are going to be in the playoffs. I like the Cowboys here a little bit more, especially with that defense. That defense is going to be nasty. So I'll say this is a relatively low-scoring game because I feel like a lot of their games are Giants-Cowboys games. So I'm going to say 23-17 Cowboys. Last game, Monday night game, we've got Bills-Jets. I think this one everybody is excited to see. I think it's going to be this could be a game we see later on that may have had a big impact on how the season shakes out. You'd see Aaron Rodgers, the old vet, versus the younger, he's a vet now, but he's still a young ascending quarterback in Josh Allen. I don't know how I see this game, honestly. Just thinking about it, I see the Bills winning. Just because I think that they have more cohesion in their team. They've done it longer. I think that later on when they meet up again, the Jets definitely can win this game. But starting out, I think it's going to take the Jets a second to get on the same page. So I'll say the Bills win this. I think this game is going to be relatively high scoring just because you have two superstar quarterbacks, even though both teams have good divisions. So I'll take the Bills 35-31 in a relatively close game, but it's like very high scoring. And that's going to be your first week. I think that there's going to be some sick games. I think that you're going to have a lot of close ones. You got a lot of division games. So I think that those are going to be a lot more good close ones. All right, guys. Coming up after the break, we got our last segment. I want to tell you guys a little bit about what you can expect from the show going forward. Kind of give you some predictions that I have for the season as well. So we'll cut to commercial and I'll be back here shortly.
24th. AllSportsCleveland.com will be on location at the Medina Eagles Club at 696 Lafayette Road in Medina. Bringing you the talk of the land live for one of the biggest rivalries in college football as the Ohio State Buckeyes take on the Michigan Wolverines. Tune in or come join us 2 hours before kickoff for all the pregame stats to have you ready for this epic matchup. Doors will open to the public at 11 a.m. with kitchen specials all day, as well as $10 buckets of domestics and raffles throughout the game, including a 70-inch Sony TV. You're not going to want to miss the broadcasters of tomorrow bringing you all the action today, only on AllSportsCleveland.com. The talk of the land.
Stuck in the rut? Feel like you need to change? Well, Ohio Media School is that change. With hands-on coursework taught by broadcast professionals, you too can work on one of many student-run internet radio stations on one of our 7 campuses. Just call 216-503-5900. That's 216-503-5900 or visit beonair.com. There's also job placement assistance at Ohio Media School to go along with the diploma program. Financial aid is available for those who qualify. The Ohio Media School. We change lives.
By attending the Ohio Media School, you can experience hands-on coursework that can have you in a TV or radio career in 9 months from now. Ohio Media School offers federal financial aid, job placement at graduation, and the instructors are working professionals in the broadcasting industry. Come tour the campus on Rockside Road. Call 216-503-5900 to set up an appointment, or check out the student-run internet radio stations at beonair.com today.
Alright guys, welcome back. This is Justice. You're listening to Justice is Served. Alright, last little segment here guys. I'm going to wrap it up quick for you. We're a little bit crunched for time, so just wanted to give you guys a little bit about what you can get going forward with me here. Like I told you, we're going to be doing a lot of NFL talk. A lot of it's going to be centered around the Browns, especially being up here in Cleveland. But I'm going to be talking about all sorts of different football stuff, especially as news stories start popping up. I love the journalistic element of the game. Obviously, you guys have probably heard so far, I care a lot about the X's and O's. I love, philosophy. In past life, I would have loved to have been a coach, but you're also going to get a lot of news stories and different opinions on those news stories and stuff like that. So if you're a fan of the NFL or even sports in general, and you want to, have a little bit of an inside view of it, or at least hear someone else's viewpoint on some of these topics, this is definitely a great place to hang out. Also, too, I'm wanting to start, as the show goes and start getting more people listened to. I want to get people, calling in, getting some, conversation going with people. Because I love hearing other people's viewpoints too. I'm a big fan of podcasts and radio as well, so I always want to hear others' opinions. I'd love to discuss with people. So, anybody who ever is listening wants to call into the radio show and have their voice heard, get to pick my brain a little bit, I'd absolutely love that. And furthermore, with that, there's other ways that you can reach me. Right now, all my social medias, if you just search my name, Justice Garber, or, in the following days when I post this show, I'm going to post this show on my YouTube page. That's also just Justice Garber. You can catch the show later on, because I'm going to record it and post it as a YouTube video. I'll have it as a Spotify link. You'll be able to see that if you search Justice is Served. Or if you go to one of my social media pages, you can, look at my link tree, and I'll have all of that stuff listed there for you. So, and if you guys are ever curious, ever have any questions or anything like that about trying to find my different projects or shows, that's another way you can call in, and I can kind of tell you guys and reiterate. But yeah, that's kind of what you're going to get going forward. You're going to get a lot of sports talk. That's the name of the game around here. You're going to get a lot of football, especially early. Maybe a little bit later on we'll get more into baseball, because I'm also a very avid baseball fan, very big basketball fan. I grew up playing all those sports and played them all over the country. So that's definitely something that I could talk forever about, and I would love to talk to you guys about, whether it be on social media, whether it be you guys calling in. Eventually I'd love to make some Discord communities for all my different shows and get you guys connected and talking together. So I just love the community aspect of sports, and I'd love to bring that and create my own community in that way. So lastly, I'll give you a little bit of we got about a minute left, so I'll give you guys a little taste of what I think this season's going to end up being like as far as football goes. I've been trying to think about this for weeks. I've been doing podcasts and trying to figure out what my prediction for the Super Bowl would be this year. And honestly, because I've been doing so much research, I know this is going to sound like a homer pick, but I truly think that you could see the Browns this year coming out of the AFC. I don't know why I feel that way, because based off the history, that's a crazy thought. But that roster is just loaded. The coaching staff is so good. And all we need is Deshaun to play. Honestly, just as I think if you have Deshaun Watson play as well as Jacoby Brissett did last year, who played out of his mind, I think, but played very well. I think if you have him play like that this year, I don't see why the Browns can't go far. I think the record's going to be way better. I could see them representing the AFC and going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they win the Super Bowl this year. I think that might be later on. But I think they definitely could, I definitely think they could represent the AFC. Now, if I hedge my bet and think what I actually think the Super Bowl is going to be, I think it could easily be a repeat of last year. I could see the Kansas City Chiefs and Eagles duking it out again. I think I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I think this year, Kansas City, depending on what happens with Chris Jones, I think they don't make it to the Super Bowl this year. I think they're losing the AFC Championship game. This is going to be a crazy one. I think that they lose to Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. They go meet up with Philly because I just think Philly's just real good. I don't see them not getting to the Super Bowl again. I love the 49ers. Like I said, they're my third favorite team. But I don't know. Cowboys are good, but I don't see them beating the Eagles. And I think the Eagles do it this year. I think they win it. I see them beating Buffalo 31-28 in the Super Bowl. Taking home another Lombardi trophy. I think Kelsey goes out in style, win another Super Bowl. I think that'd be awesome. Not an Eagles fan, but this Eagles team they have put together, it's hard not to root for. So that's my prediction for it there. We're going to be wrapping up the show here, guys. I'm up against it. But I appreciate you coming out and checking this out. I'm going to be doing this every Tuesday for the foreseeable future. We're going to be doing that Tuesdays at 2. All right, guys, that's the show. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Justice Garber, and Justice is Served.